So I got this friend, right? She insults my line of work. But, wait, get this. She's having a wedding, and she wants to use my big old mansion and my expensive cars. But how did I get that stuff? Oh yeah, from the line of work that I do. People most often cannot bear to be treated the way they treat others. I'm from a family of 6. My parents gave birth to 3 boys and a girl, and I'm the eldest of them all. The first boy and the firstborn, this meant that I had the responsibility of looking out for my siblings, and frankly speaking, my parents did not really need to remind me of it. Looking out for my siblings just came naturally as a result of the love which I have towards them. My parents were well-to-do, so we always had our needs met, although they never let it get out of hand and make us lazy and proud. Among the whole of my siblings, I was closer to Sam. Sam was the youngest of my siblings, and he was, quote, unique in his own way. Growing up with Sam, we discovered that he was not really interested in most things which guys were running after. It's always been the norm for guys to go after girls. At least, nature made it so, but Sam was the last person you would find in the company of girls. He was just genuinely disinterested. Even when I'd set him up with a girl during his high school days, Sam blew the whole thing up. His behavior for a guy, it was questionable, but nobody really cared to ask if it did not seem so serious. I mean, my parents were just glad that one of their sons was serious with his academics, that he found being in a relationship with a girl irrelevant. They actually praised him for that, but they were just in for a shock. During Sam's final year in high school, he openly declared his sexuality. He's gay. I was the first to learn about it, as he had approached me first to tell me his secret, and in turn, I advised him to come out as gay. I believed, and still do, that people should not be hated and treated differently because of who they were. Neither are they being forced to coerced into being who they are not. Even though my brother's actions of coming out as gay answered the questions that lingered in people's minds of how a handsome boy, who most ladies in his class were running after, seemed to be running away from them. The treatment which my brother got from that day was so bad that I would never wish such a fate on my enemy. Sam was laughed at and mocked at in school, to the point where he soon preferred staying at home, rather than going to school where he would be used as an object of amusement for the kids there. Staying at home, though, it wasn't any better. Everyone, my father, my mother, and my siblings all treated him with disdain. My parents were the ones who were mostly pained by my brother's actions. They just could not settle with the fact that their son was gay. They questioned him to know if he had been abused anywhere and was acting as gay as a result of it. But my brother's reply remained that he'd always been this way. Our parents did all they could to make him become a man who loved women, but it failed. That was when they resorted to making threats. They threatened to quit sponsoring my brother, who was their son. In all of that, my brother Sam remained true to himself, and I was the only one who openly supported him. My parents were virtually against me for siding with my brother. They equally started behaving hostilely towards me. Bullying was the order of the day for my brother, whether he was in school or at home, and I did my possible best to see that I stood up for him. This was coming at a time when gays were targeted in the country, even though it was not really illegal being homosexual. There were firms that would not employ gays. They were traders who did not want to get in any form of business with gays. There was just a lot of injustice going against gays back in the country, and this was what led my brother and I to becoming activists for gay rights. I finished college before my younger brother Sam, and I worked so I could sponsor him in school to study the same law which I'd studied, as my parents were now against the both of us. Everyone was against us. I virtually lost all my friends when I began speaking for gays. Some even accused me of being gay. All my friends were gone except for Stacy. Stacy was my high school friend. It was quite odd that my best friend was actually a girl, but that's just how it was. Stacy was my friend, but she never failed to let me know her stance on homosexuality. She did not understand why I was canvassing for them when I was not gay. Stacy, like the rest of the people, was disgusted by my brother's sexuality, but her own hate and anger came from the fact that she once had feelings for my younger brother Sam. She felt wounded when my brother rejected her advancement towards him because he simply had no interest in her. She had since been filled with rage and anger and disgust towards him ever since. Once my younger brother Sam finished his college, he and I tried creating our brand, and we were not really earning much, while Stacy was the manager of a textile company. She earned a fat salary compared to what my brother and I were making. Stacy always found a way to belittle our career. She felt that we were wasting our time on something foolish. I did not really matter or think to us that Stacy or some of the other people thought about what we were doing because we were not just in our career to make money. We wanted to impact lives, and even though our beginning was really small, we knew we were never really going to end up little because there were a lot of other individuals out there who, just like my younger brother, had been treated unjustly because of their sexuality. We were going to be the voices for all of them. Few years goes down the line, and Sam and I began doing pretty well. We've created our brands as gay rights activists. We made it our concern to help bring justice to the people who were being maltreated for their sexuality. We began raking in millions annually, and the tide was gradually turning to our favor, while the reverse was happening to Stacy. Stacy was beginning to go into debt, as at that time she'd been slammed with a lawsuit for her reckless driving that left a boy 16 years old permanently paralyzed. She was fined a huge sum of money, which ran into the hundreds of thousands. It took the whole of her life savings and some amount borrowed from people to settle the bill. Stacy was now living from paycheck to paycheck, and it was just not enough to meet her needs anymore. Well, she began gambling and started getting drunk. And before long, her employer saw her as unfit for the position of a manager. She was fired from the only source of income she's ever had. Stacy resorted to full-time gambling, and I still can't say how she managed to do it, but she soon got herself a loaded man who was willing to get married to her. Stacy began her wedding preparations, and she called me after some days to ask for a favor. She needed to use the beach house and our car, a BMW X6, for 1 full week. I did not feel good about it, and my brother Sam, well, he shared the same feeling of uneasiness that I did. If her boyfriend was so financially loaded as she claimed, then he could have easily bought those things. When it was clear that I was hesitant in giving Stacy a reply, she began blackmailing me emotionally. She said that she was broke, but yet still deserving of a proper wedding ceremony. Well, I guess her plan worked because I agreed with my junior brother to grant her a request. After all, she was my friend, and it was her wedding. I was not going to stand in the way of her wedding by denying her the beach house which she wanted us to use as a venue. As the day of the wedding kept drawing near, I discovered that Stacy tried avoiding any conversation that related to the wedding. The wedding was going to be a big one, from what I could tell. There were apparently high-profile people who were going to be flown down from various parts of the country, and their tickets had already been bought. I knew something was off because besides the house and car which Stacy and her boyfriend would be using, I was supposed to actively be involved in making her day special. She was supposed to let me be part of these planning her days, but she just kept me in the dark. The only thing that I knew about the wedding was the date that was fixed, and that's because Stacy had to tell me since she was going to use the house and the car on that day. I had to go direct. I just asked her. I asked Stacy about the wedding so I could be prepared, and that's when she said that I should not bother myself concerning the wedding. She said that I wasn't invited. At this point, I get really confused. I asked if I had offended her in any way, and she said no, that's not the case. She said her reason for not offering me an invite or keeping me updated about the wedding was because her fiancé had specifically said that he did not want me or my brother present at the wedding day. It was not because my brother or I had offended him. It was simply because he was not in support of what we stood for. Yeah, he was not okay with gay activists and their activism. He did not want people to find us at the wedding, and it will tarnish his image. His words. I got mad when Stacy was done talking trash. To start with, her shameless boyfriend was going to be the kind of guy who would want to control the life of his women. He was not yet married to her, but he'd already started showing signs. Secondly, Stacy is really stupid if after seeing these red flags, still goes ahead and marries this jerk. Thirdly, both Stacy and her shameless boyfriend were silly hypocrites. They were ashamed at what I did and did not want to be associated with me or my brother in public, but they wanted using the house and car, which were proceeds from the career that they so despised, to do their wedding. It was not difficult taking my next line of action. After Stacy had told me her reason for not giving my brother and I an invite to her wedding, I acted like it was fine. I simply waited for a day before the wedding before telling her that our car and house were no more going to be used by her and her lover. The properties were bought for the money my brother and I made from being a gay rights activist, and since they hated the job, then they should not love the things that came from it. Besides, if her loaded fiancé, whom I was already suspecting was a big ol' scam, is as rich as Stacy claimed, then she'd be able to give her a marriage of her dreams. The disappointment was epic, and the embarrassment which Stacy was going to face was even more satisfying. I'd shattered the wedding of her dream just a day before it came, and there was nothing that she could do about it. Both she and her fiancé could not get a last-minute alternative, so they had to go with the only option which they had, postponing the wedding for a later date. When the news of the wedding being postponed got to their guests, they were so angry. Most of them had already flown into the States and lodged in a hotel, while the rest of them had gotten their flight ticket ready. You can imagine how disappointed and angry they were at Stacy. The guests had arrived a day earlier and had to return to their states, while those who had not come to cancel their flight, but they trolled Stacy on social media. It was not a small thing. They were not really interested in the excuse and apology that Stacy offered. They labeled her as a wanting to live about her means. It got to the point that Stacy had to stay off the media for some time. My vengeful actions towards Stacy and her fiancé obviously ruined my relationship with her, but I don't care. They both deserved what they got for being hypocritical. It actually dawned on me that there was really no point of being friends with Stacy. She'd always spoken against what I did, and such a person could not be my friend. My friend should offer me support when the world turns against me, and not be embarrassed doing so. I would have cherished our friendship more if she's made her fiancé understand that our friendship was not something she was about to be embarrassed about. Well, the deed had been done, and everyone were on their own. Stacy did pay my brother and I a visit to express her anger and all, but I simply used the opportunity to advise her against getting married with her so-called fiancé, because there were pointers that the union would not really turn out well for her. Well, she ignored me. Stacy went ahead and married her lover in a very private ceremony, and it was witnessed by just a few people. They did not bother inviting their guests, as most of them were unwilling to attend after they've been disappointed by the previous experience. Just 3 months after the wedding, Stacy began experiencing hell. It's more like she was in bondage. Her husband compelled her to quit looking for a job and just be a stay-at-home wife. His reason was simply because he got jealous when he found her talking to guys. Stacy's husband kept tabs on her every moment, and it's not long before he started abusing her in the home. Stacy became pregnant on the 6 months after the wedding, but it did not stop him from beating her. It got to the point where Stacy had to run away from the fear of her life, and that of her child, and she ran to my brother and I. She pleaded with us to help her like her life depended on it. And, well, I guess it actually did. Even though we were gay activists, we were still lawyers, too, who could still fight for the rights of citizens. And so it was no big deal prosecuting her husband for abuse. She equally filed for divorce while we were at it. Her husband sentenced to 6 years in prison. While Stacy became a free woman, her marriage packed up in less than a year. It's been 2 years since the whole incident, and Stacy's currently a single mom who's still yet to find a job since her narcissistic ex-husband compelled her to quit looking. I'm currently and publicly dating a lady, which has made people believe that I'm not gay. I only advocate that they be treated like every other human being, not as animals. My younger brother is about getting married to his gay lover. It's obvious that only a few people would be present at my younger brother Sam's wedding, as my family has since cut them off. Stacy was going to be present at the wedding. Her views about my career, my brother, and I undertook had begun to change, since we helped prosecute her husband, and she was not going to be ashamed attending a gay wedding after all. Well, I'm just glad that Stacy's finally coming around, learning to accept the fact that homosexuals are equal human beings who equally need love and care. She now has a son who might grow up to be openly declare himself gay one day. And what was she going to do then? Would she kill him because of his sexuality? Or would she help him stand strong against the injustice that people who do not share her son's views would throw at him? Well, I do hope, and we'll keep on working towards the society that would accept people just the way they are. Okay guys, so we already know what happened. Stacy probably suffered from one of the most embarrassing days of her life. But I do have one question. Was OP too harsh? And what I mean by that, do you think that he should have went ahead and told Stacy, hey, we don't agree with your opinions, we don't agree with your views and how you look down upon what I do and the people I support, we don't agree with any of that. So you're not using the house, you're not using the car, and I'm telling you in advance so it's not going to completely ruin your wedding. Or do you think OP made the perfect decision? And what he did was tell her with no time left to find a new place, guaranteeing the demise of her wedding. That's the question I have for you guys. Feel free to drop your answers right down below as the highlighted question of the day. Exciting stuff. If you guys are enjoying this story or any of the stories, just know I do this every single day. I have other channels too. You can find them directly below. All my links are in my description. Have an amazing day, guys. Mr. Reddito. I'll catch you in the next one.